Welcome, 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 welcome. Thank you for your patience. My first reading in a minute. My eyes feel like they're gonna explode from the allergies, but we will survive. All right. So I have everything over here. I like to start out. So let me get my I have a little thing I like to do when I do readings these days. I like to start. I kind of go back and forth, on off camera. It doesn't matter. Like all that matters is what I say. Um, but I usually like to, at least these days, start off kind of in a meditative mood, let things come to me, and then I go back and forth. You'll see. So it's just so first thing that I see from a karmic perspective is that one of the realm of existence, the axis is called in astrology that we're dealing with the most here is the Aries Libra opposition. So the Aries axis, the Aries Libra axis, and with the ascendant and the sun Aries, the moon in Libra means that they're also in the first and seventh house, which is the house of Aries, the house of Libra, which basically means that the themes of those two opposite signs play a major role. Now, if there's six axes in astrology. There's 12 signs, and each axis is one of the six sets of opposite signs, which are the same energy, same type of energy, but opposite manifestation. So Aries and Libra are the axis for when I see it with your entire chart. I think that and you have Uranus and Neptune square Sun. Interesting. Square Sun. Mars. Yeah. Chiron. Chiron. Saturn. Interesting. Um, so it's really like very relational. And with the North Node in the eighth house in Scorpio, that's common for my clients to see that, and I'll explain that. You're really in this lifetime you're trying to move away from a past life tendency. Now, when I say past life tendency, I am not under the belief that every lifetime is ever asking to say what I really, really think. My best, I would say that it really is different from individual to individual. I'll explain an example. So let's say that you are someone who, through different incarnations, has struggled with the same thing, right? So like let's say there's like different areas of life, right? Even in your life today, you can think of different areas. Like for example, let's say you're doing really good in terms of your career, your outer world success, helping people, and you know your relationships, your romantic relationships are good, but then your friendships and your alliances suck, or there's a big problem there, or everything is good, but there's some kind of addiction, or everything is good, but there's some kind of um, issue with self-esteem, right? Or everything is pretty good on the inside, but there's a huge issue with trust. Like there's so many different things, right? So when I see South Node, which is representing your karmic tendency, the been there, done that, what you're trying to move away from. In Taurus, and Aries risings makes it way easier because of how the houses are aligned. Every Aries in the Aries house, Taurus in the Taurus house, and so forth. It makes it easier. So, excuse me. When I think of a Taurus South Node, I think of the idea of different lifetimes that in some way, shape, or form have been played on safe mode. And that doesn't mean that you have, let's say, gone and done messed up things. However, there is a square with Mars. Now, that can be a bunch of different things. Um, the way I see it with your chart is that you haven't been able to act and truly own your independence, and act in a way that's like very sovereign in terms of you finding the essence, the true essence of your creative nature. So let that kind of sink in, because when the North Node is in Scorpio, and that represents the area of life, the energy that you're trying to go towards, it's no wonder that I get a lot, or it's not a surprise that I get a lot of clients with this, right? Because Scorpio is the sign of death, rebirth, transformation. So while Taurus, I like the metaphor I always think of is, or the like, I think of like a very safe, everything's safe, everything is like I don't know. I for some reason I just get these funny like images, right? Or I like kind of like visualizations in my head. And for that one I get like a very happy family life in Costa Rica and some very beautiful place. And because of that, it's like the person who has everything really good, not like spoiled necessarily, but it can be like overly material, and because of that overly materialness, um not wanting to, I guess, really make that transition towards taking risks. So, and the risks that I'm talking about are not like, it's really those like emotional, spiritual risks. So in this lifetime, you're with your Mars, ruling your chart, because Aries is ruled by Mars and it's in Leo. There's a very strong energy there that is related to finding your creative purpose and to finding your inner child. And that is kind of like the door. So any kind of like creative outlet is kind of is sort of, you can sort of look at it as the door for how you evolve, right? And North Node Scorpio people are here to, shed the snake skin, right? They're here to let things, people, ways of being, whatever it is that's no longer serving them, really. So you'll have different presented to you, situations presented to you where it might seem very risky, right? Like think of the person, like the example I was giving, like the person who, or yeah, just someone who kind of grew up in the same place, as just knew everyone, didn't really leave for school, and just kind of stuck around, and then they get some opportunity to do something different or be somewhere different, and it's like a great opportunity, but in doing so they would have to let go of all the things that they, that they really, that represent the no, and that's not easy. But let's say on the other side of that there was something worth way more than that, way more valuable. So a lot of times a Scorpio, it represents like a deep dive into the internal psyche. And you have to just like understand that if there are situations that come up that you're here, there's definitely something with the square to Mars, which a square of the nodes is a skip step karmically. Mars is your assertiveness function that in some way you were held back from acting, and that can show up sometimes as repressed anger in this lifetime from past lives. So there's just this very deep karmic need for you to be able to really feel free and feel independent. Now, this goes to the really important thing about Aries Libra that I started talking about, but then I wanted to talk about kind of give a little zoomed out perspective first. So my belief is that our personal planets, right, like our sun, our moon, our ascendant, Venus, Mars, Mercury, I believe that based on our karma, our past life stuff, that I believe that there's a big relation between our karmic goals and the personal planets. Now, do I like it's not so easy. It's not like that simple, that's simple to understand, right? It's more complex than just like, like it's different for everyone. But with being an Aries rising and an Aries sun with a Libra moon, there's this big, 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 like, you know, um, polarity of being independent versus very, very relationship oriented. And the big question is how do you find and whenever I think of that, I think of it as like how does that person keep their independence while also compromising in relationships? Because the moon is your yin, your feminine side, and your sun is your yang, your masculine side. So you know with the moon in Libra, the moon is speaking to your emotional need and to how you feel secure within yourself. So Libra is it can be a sign that can at its lowest, or I guess unevolved, because it can be codependent, and it can be very hard for Libra to do things alone and to be independent, while for Aries it can be very hard to compromise and to not be they can be so independent that's to a point where they don't want to make any compromises, and it's their way or the highway. And I'm not saying every one of those two sides is like that, but it's very conflicting. And it also means that you were born um well right before a full moon in, of course, Libra. So as you know, well, most people agree that full moon, full moons, each really intense full moon that we have, sometimes it's not just the day of the full moon. For me, actually, personally, lots of people I know, it's, sometimes it's one day before, sometimes it's 2 days before. It's not necessarily on that day. So that's most intense. Sorry. So, it just speaks to kind of like an intensity that you feel, and also having your sun and moon in opposite signs can speak to your parents having had a very, very different overall worldview, and have their contribution to you on a unconscious level, what you've taken from each parent. Usually with the opposition, it's very, very different people. Sometimes I see a lot of divorced parents with that. And if not divorced, I very rarely see parents that are like super happily married. Um, I do see some that are still married, but usually they're very, very different. And the kid has some level there's some level of confusion often, and trying to figure out how to make everything the two work, right? So because Libra moons really need to, like I said, it does border on codependency at its lowest. It isn't always that way, but it's important for Libra moon to well, it's important to find for the balance of the masculine and feminine, to find a balance between independence and relationships. Um, of course, there's lots of different ways to accomplish that. A lot, and I see this. I see it's not like I never see this. Like I see these types of charts, or this type of this axis and charts like this a good amount. Um, so it's not rare, but I really think that um, on a karmic level, there is a certain there's a certain level there could very well be be times that there's more like of a hermit energy, and then be times where it's more about some type of way more about relationships. And sometimes people in life, they go they go in different there's different eras in people's life uh related to those different experiences. And because another thing about Scorpio energy is that it's very intimate, and um there's lots of lessons that come in love. But as an Aries with Mars and Leo, you will most definitely be someone who is here to really be in touch with their masculine, and with the energies of action, authentic action, and assertiveness, and doing things how you want to do them, not you know how conditioning wants you to do them, and stuff like that. But of course, to get there, there's lots of tests, especially with the Venus and Saturn together. That is a symbol of someone who, for the first 30 years, so you're coming up on your Saturn return. 30, it's 29 and a half, 30, whatever. Depend, yeah. But usually it's in the 12th house, so very, very karmic love energy, and lots of lessons in love. And Chiron or Chiron's opposite Venus too. So Venus has two tough aspects on it, which not only makes it, that's not just relationship stuff. It's also about self-love, right? That's at the core of Venus, is self-love. And so that's kind of what can be difficult, right, with the Venus and Saturn, is that people can, with that aspect, they, especially in Pisces, right, they're at the highest, that makes someone very, very, very selfless in love, and combined with sort of the ability to have very long term relationships. But the Venus and Pisces, as romantic and as artistic and as it is, it oftentimes has to learn lessons around like sometimes it will go for the wrong types of people. Um, Especially with Sun square Neptune, there is, at some point there, and with Mercury square Neptune too, there can be a sort of confusion around the self. And this really does point back to the North Node Scorpio being a sign that's very mystical, and it's kind of like the sorceress, the magician, the alchemist, and it's really asking you to be like that, like metaphorically, or it doesn't have to be just metaphoric, but on a level of really, 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 like whether it's being of service or doing something that helps you understand the human psyche on a very deep level. That is really what helps. But yeah, Venus and Pisces definitely one of the one of the what most people would say is the most beautiful Venus signs, if not the most. It's exalted. um, but in this like you have enough Neptune in your chart for me to say you have a lot. Yeah, I mean it squares your sun and your Mercury, and then you have Pisces energy. So Neptune is basically this very heavenly energy, this very divine energy, and at its lowest, it can make it really difficult for one to see themselves clearly. So there can be identity crisis. Um, and at the same time, Neptune can also it can also just be, I guess, what you call like the highest level of enlightenment. Um, yeah, like so a lot of people with Neptunian energy, they find that whether it's through the creative arts, creative self self express themselves creatively, finding some deep form of spirituality, which can be music, art, just how they live their lives, gratitude, mindfulness. I mean, there's spirituality, prayer, like all these things, right? There's many different paths. It's just like you know, I guess what I would say is just about being introspective. That's really the essence of it. But when Pisces energy doesn't find that, sometimes it can fall into those traps of just going in like kind of cycles of confusion, and just not really understanding the truth of why it's there, why it's on Earth, and you combine that with this deep sensitivity, which can be seen as like oversensitivity. It's just it can just be difficult. Yeah, yeah. So that's kind of like the goal there with the Venus. 12th house Venus also will bring lots of karmic partners. Um, Sometimes it's imbalances in love and different karmic relationships. And with anything 12th house, it's it's really it's really about through that process of letting go that things get better, and through the process of service, whatever that means to you. But really, I think a 12th house Venus Saturn conjunction would speak a lot to the idea of letting go, because there can be some different like phobias, like being afraid of kind of the dark, metaphorically speaking. And sometimes people actually are like, have issues like feeling like there's like a spirit, afraid of like dark spirits, whatever it is, right? Ghosts. Um, so, there's definitely a need to not take life so seriously when you have those types of energies. So like learn to like laugh because it can definitely make someone like it can kind of create like sort of even as an Aries, um, 12th house Saturn can kind of make someone like a little bit of a loner. Of course, Venus there will definitely does even it out. But overall, like I think the best way that your Venus can work um is that Venus and Pisces can be recognized, like it can get it can find the right partner. It cannot be naive in relationships and um, learn who to trust and who not to trust, so forth. But Saturn actually, because it's Capricorn energy, and Capricorn energy in love actually makes someone more conservative and more pragmatic. So if you actually combine Pisces and Capricorn, it creates this idealistic, dreamy energy mixed with this more practical and logical and down to earth energy. So that's the highest expression. The lowest expression is rose colored glasses in love. Oh my God, like jumping into things. This person's my twin flame. Like, and just kind of falling into like cycles, like repeated cycles. Um, which it's inevitable for everyone. 12th house Venus and just in, for most people in general, especially with this axis in their chart. But the key is, to learn from, right? If there's no learning, then that's not good. So going back a little bit to the fact, so seventh house moon in Libra, right? Like speak on that a little bit. I would say the lowest expression of Libra moon is just needing validation from other people, needing to feel like it's like that the energy of like if I'm not in a relationship, if I'm not validated, like finding God in another human, right? If I'm like taking one's validation from whether they're in a relationship or not. The highest expression of Libra is most definitely being able to be very, it's obviously very diplomatic. Um, and it's very good at being able to find different sides to the equation. And it's very, very good um, at sensing how, like being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. So Libra also, Libra moon, sometimes there will be, I guess with Libra moon, the thing is this, it's an air moon, so like Aquarius and Gemini moons, there can be issues with feeling emotions in the moment. Because air moons like have a tendency of removing themselves from their emotions a little bit and having a little bit of distance from them. So I always say like, something could happen for a Cancer moon and a Libra moon, and um the Cancer moon in that moment might like cry about it, feel the emotions, while the Libra moon might not feel that for 7 months. Um, so for any air moon, there can be a tendency to intellectualize emotions, and it's just important. It's not necessarily. It's not like the person's, like no air moon is emotional or has emotions or something like that. It's just like there can be a tendency to intellectualize it and stuff of that nature. So yeah, important to feel what's coming. But sometimes a seventh house moon can take too much of its emotional, because the moon's in the house of other, so it can take too much of its emotional well-being, not just well-being, but like even of its emotions in general, of its emotional life from partners, right? So it's a little bit different than what I was saying before. Both those things to be present. Um, but yeah, it's just It's just yeah, it's just important to because like when there's Aries, which is the opposite energy of Libra, that is all about me. I believe that to a certain extent in this lifetime, you are really meant to be very independent, very leadership type energy, very kind of steadfast in your opinions and living a life that you're not living your life based on someone else. You're not allowing yourself to fall into the trap of getting into a relationship and just completely just falling apart and not it's the wrong word, just completely losing your identity in the relationship. So yeah, just important to no, not do that. So yeah, it's just like I said, with any full moon chart, it's balancing the two, feeding both mouths. So you feed Libra like by understanding, okay, like there is a part of me that um, you know, and also like Libra is not just about relationships, it's about it's about balance in general. So Libra moons, they have an emotional need to feel to feel balance and like things are fair. And so it can be great for someone who wants to be a counselor, someone who even in business negotiations, stuff like that. But that internal feeling, which can be very unconscious, of everything needs to be balanced, sometimes that's where the people pleasing of a Libra moon can come in. And the idea of, okay, I can put myself down just to ensure that that the energy is settled. And that's not always good. So yeah, there's definitely another aspect in your chart of truth, the idea of truth and the idea of traveling and teaching and learning and wisdom and all that. Jupiter and Pluto in the ninth. Um, you are definitely someone who's kind of like very most likely very internally philosophical. Um, yeah, so definitely like lots of like kind of like very internally internally lots of expansive energy internally. um, I think with your ninth house that there's a part of you that with Pluto there, you really want to like find truth in this lifetime. Um, and I think that it can relate to your like I think that can play such a massive role in your life, right? Um, a ninth house Jupiter, it's a natural born philosopher. Like whether like I'm not saying that's your job, but someone who is meant to really and they want to it's you're meant to test out different worldviews, go here, go there, go here, go there. It's all about curiosity. And um, Pluto can give like an obsession for finding truth, right? For truth seeking. And it's really about the meaning of life at the end of the day. Some people are closed off to trying to really find the real answers. Some people, they want to expand through knowledge, right? And through wisdom. So with Jupiter and Sag, that's the best position for Jupiter, right? The dignity position. So it makes someone love adventure, um, to study, learn, spirituality, it's linked with religion, like I said, philosophy and foreign cultures. So it definitely makes someone who wants to go out and learn a lot. And with Pluto, like I said, a lot of times ninth house Plutos, like they feel like on some level they they don't always feel like they don't always feel like the culture they were born into really represents them. Like they might travel to like karmic places in their life and really feel connections to those places and be like, oh shit, I feel like this is my real country. This is my real place. Let's hear from Scotland. Can't do the Scottish accent. I love it. I love the Scottish accent. I can't. Um. So yeah, there's just it's like you can like seek, search, and find something really beautiful. Like imagine you're someone who travels, and there's this potential for being very obsessed with something, and I mean obsessed in a good way, right? Like something that gives you meaning, and you also have to really be careful. Hey, Mika, for becoming overly dogmatic in your personal philosophies. No, not Mika. Stay right here. Stay right here. You want to help me? You never help me. Maybe Esme does. She's far away. Um. So yeah, that's the thing with any Sag energy like that. Mika, that's kitty ever. Here we go. Yeah, like it's just really important to not, because like you could be someone that spends a lot of energy and a lot of resources and it's very intelligent. Um, so there's also this part of you that a dumb astrologer would call it gullible. I would say that it's really, really linked um with let's just say, like, I feel like it's lifetimes in other realms, Neptunians, where they're not used to being in a place like Earth where they're lied to. That's how I feel that it is, right? Because if like imagine like you've incarnated in realms, or like, you know, your spirit is linked to realms where where beings are just honest and lying isn't a thing, manipulating isn't a thing. That's very Neptunian. So you come here and you get some rude awakenings, and then the choice is like, do you want to crack, and do you want to, lose faith in God and existence, or do you want to keep that faith? So yeah, that's the thing. The thing that's important. And with the squares to Mercury and the Sun, I think, like I said, there's the identity crisis potential, but also you just have to really, really take your time with decisions, because Mercury square Neptune is super, like, it's crazy how it can work on the mind. It's very, very creative, right? Um, very, very creative, but it can make someone have like a very weird filter, not weird, sorry, wrong word, a very off filter that can be transformed into a very on and intuitive filter, but through which they, like everyday reality comes to them. So they can be really, really good at like the very elevated abstract types of especially like the deep philosophical thoughts, right? But then when it comes to um when it comes to this, when it comes to basic things, it can be a little bit difficult. See what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Um, and then yeah, we talk like being very, very close to that Kazemi point is also interesting. I still think that, when when you look into a Kazemi, it's 0.17, and you're obviously like a tiny bit outside that. Um, I I don't know, how, like, where that 0.17 comes from. Um, it's hard to find information on that. Like 17 minutes of arc. Um, but I think when it's that close, it's still combust. But I think when it's like so close to the Kazemi, obviously it's not it's almost like a planet that's on a cusp, you know? So there will be, you know, it won't be like a full combust, which can make someone very it can kind of like, but like with any like strong like conjunction of Mercury and Sun, um it definitely kind of like it can cause someone because it's point 21, right? But it usually makes someone like a good communicator. But sometimes I feel like with a combust, there can be a lack of objectivity, so they have to work harder for that. And sometimes they have to really look at like sometimes they can like they really love like there's that love that link between mind and identity, but sometimes they can link their identity too much with their mind. So doing types of meditations where you separate from your mind is very, especially for air and moon, can be very very important. Um, but yeah, any like Sun Mercury, like there's just like that love for learning and always looking for different avenues to kind of like communicate ideas and so yeah. But sometimes like the thing I noticed with both any kind of conjunction with Sun is that it creates people who tend to talk, especially in Aries, right? Or like they really have to be mindful of like the talking versus listening. But this is something that can be learned. Everything, the gift of astrology is that it teaches us, right? Or it teaches us by giving us awareness of so like I have a Sun Mercury Kazemi, right? And when I learn about it for myself, I think like, wow, there were times, especially when I was younger, that I was definitely more interested in. It's not that I was a bad listener and that I was like a narcissist or like but like I definitely like to talk a good amount. You know what I mean? So it's like now. One second. Now I'm just becoming very mindful of that. I think it's really important. Sorry. Let me put this on. So, um, yeah. So like that's the thing though, like from like a you know, one of the things also with your Mercury is that so it squares Neptune, like I said, um, there can just like it's just really important to take feedback. And for example, if you had a partner, like it's very like it's like the idea of someone who like someone says like how are you doing or how's your day, and they just like take it for something very basic like that. They take it, so it's like it's yeah, they take it, they like oh, like might overanalyze it and think like they meant something they didn't, or like not see someone's motives clearly. So it can really harm relationships because of like feeling misunderstood and actually misunderstanding others. Also, it's linked to like magicians and people who can like really be great tricksters and um, very creative. Lots of writers, lots of musicians, artists, poets, all that kind of stuff, right? But because having Neptune connected to your Mercury, your mind in any way creates that amazing imagination, right? But it's just the confusion, the foggy part of Neptune that can also enter into close relationships. And it comes from understanding the basis of language, right? Or like really getting getting with that, right? And the idea is like keeping it simple and always like even though it might not sound best, it's like to really like know that about yourself and try to notice it. And like I said, like I always say, anything in astrology, anything in your chart, you're at the age now where you could have overcome a lot of these aspects. A lot of times they're more difficult early on, but it's really about really having mindfulness and control over your mind. Um, Also, you have to be very careful with signing any contracts. Um, and with anything like legal, with the government, stuff like that. Just don't get in debt either. I mean, I guess like Mercury, Neptune. Yeah, no, I'd say debt as long as you're really careful about. I mean, you don't want to get in that much debt, anyways. But just as long as you're really careful about what you're signing. And there can be like some insecurities that can come. So like, what your Chiron is in Virgo, so a lot of times that can be linked to perhaps like having felt misunderstood by parents. Not always, but like some kind of level of perfectionism that you have in your mind for whatever reason. um and it could also be linked to, because of this Mercury square Neptune, you can be like extremely smart, right? But it's very right brained, right? And more abstract, more creative, and very kind of imagination intuitively based. So sometimes, like I said, people can misunderstand you. So imagine, like, it can make someone very very sensitive to criticism, rejection, right? So it's really important to find like other types of people that are very spiritual, artistic, and hang out with those people, right? um yeah. So also, like with any Neptune, staying away from drugs, alcohol is really really big, because it can kind of, anything like that, like lying, gossiping, it can just exacerbate that tendency already. But the book Nonviolent Communication, I like to bring that up. I think it's a great book to read. It's very famous in psychology school. We yeah, we read that, and it's a good one, and I think everyone should read it. And I tell, people with this aspect to check that one out. So then also, like, I didn't say, like, Sun square Uranus. So because your career, your dharma, it's very linked to your truth, which might take you all over the world, or just like all over different ideas, until you really find, like, okay, like, this is what's important in life. I want to do this in my career. And you have Neptune in the 12th, in the 10th also. So you do want to really give back in your career. You want to, like, be very, very, and you have Juno there too. So, you could, I think that there you probably like want to like marry someone, or like very, it could be someone who has like a massive impact on your social standing slash career slash your dharma, someone that maybe you work with in some way. Um, but Juno there also can represent like really wanting to like be someone who's very, very, who's really giving back to society, Capricorn. Lots of honor, but also there's lots of compassion linked to the career. Now, the sun in the first, of course, in Aries, that's just like the ultimate, like, it's okay to be selfish in this lifetime. It's really important for you to be yourself, and for you to develop as an individual. But at the same time, if you haven't found, and it takes you several kind of different trials and tribs, or trial and error, to find your perfect, like, what you're really really here for. Don't get discouraged if you don't, if it doesn't get figured out right away, because Sun square Uranus is that very exciting person. And sometimes they go through lots of different trials and tribulations before they're able to find what it is. And sometimes it takes them till, like, the your Uranus opposition can be, around 41 years old. I read somewhere like 52. But, like, it's not always like that. But sometimes people with Uranus square Sun, they always have a very very important and often very 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 individualized special mission, right? So um it's really important to know that it's a road less traveled. And with Sun opposite Moon, that's really about you not being meant to be like your mom or your dad. You're trying to blaze your own path in this lifetime. So and your Moon has a nice trine to Uranus. That's actually one of the most, in my opinion, that's one of the best signifiers of potential for real psychic downloads, which obviously we don't see them, but they're energies, So when you sit and meditate, if you can really quiet your mind, which, isn't always easy, but if you're able to quiet your mind, you can um, receive downloads and just get these like streams of consciousness and you don't even know where they're coming from. So that's important. But just knowing like the earlier you can, you're able to snap out of the idea that your life has to be um I'm not saying you're in this idea, but like making sure that you're not thinking that your life needs to be like anyone else's, or like kind of that you're supposed to follow a track that's similar. It's like the road less taken. And with your south node, right? That's the karmic, remember the karmic tendency in Taurus, sometimes people get stuck in their south node. So that could for you look like um, you know, being stuck worrying too much about materialistic stuff or surface level stuff, being afraid of taking, spiritual risks, um, wanting to play it safe, essentially. So, like, you can kind of feel if you're stuck in the south node by this feeling. It's this feeling of like I feel like I'm doing what's comfortable, but it's not working, right? Like I feel like I'm doing like, and it can feel kind of like if you're in your north node, striving towards your north node, you feel this sort of alignment, which it doesn't always feel like so magical, right? But when you like, it's like you feel proud of yourself. You feel like, okay, I'm doing my thing, like I'm doing my thing, and it might even feel a little bit awkward, right? It might because like the North Node, it's like the mountain never climbed. So Scorpio, and then your part of fortune is on your North Node, so that's just showing that's actually a really beneficial thing for you because there's great rewards for you when you're able to kind of strip down the layers and evolve and shed the snakeskin and incorporate that change in your life, right? And not just want that peace and quiet at all costs. So one of the biggest potential issues there is relationships, codependency, and feeling like like people pleasing, the low Libra stuff, right? So it's really about being open to new possibilities and stripping away the old to make way for the new. That's really what it is. So when you resist change, you tend to weaken your spiritual strength. Um, so yeah, and then it's also about learning self control, right? And in that, letting go of these ingrained attitudes about change, and just about anything. It's leaving the material and going towards leaving the physical and going towards the metaphysical, right? Taurus is very about this world, and Scorpio is very mystical and it's kind of like the dark. It's like leaving this light Costa Rica energy and going into the basement. And I know that doesn't sound great, but you're not staying in the basement because by going to that basement or going to that kind of like internal underworld, right? Pluto energy, that's where you find the true gold, and then you by doing the shadow work. So you're meant to do the shadow work in this life. Um, so yeah, you'll definitely be someone who is a lot of Aries risings have like these crystal blue eyes. I don't know if you do. And I'm not really good with knowing like I never really got into like the physical features of the rising signs, but yeah, it's very masculine in the sense of like it goes and gets what it wants. So very good on taking initiative, it has to watch out for, it's very assertive and takes the initiative, like I said, but like some it could be like sometimes the Aries has to watch out for like being too fiery. So that's kind of why like this Libra moon balances out that Aries tendency to kind of like, because it is so considerate, right? Libra moons are so considerate. So I think that's that opposition, that's kind of how you can play it out, is that just going on that line of like action, action, action. But sometimes let's say the Aries, it goes too far in the Aries camp, right? And then it loses friends, right? So then it goes back into Libra. Libra moon side, and it's like, because like your moon is what you need, right? So you're here to be a leader, you're here to be an independent person, but you need to feel harmony and peace, right? So it really is important to have and to have that strong relationship with yourself. And to I feel like, anyone is weakened when they they really require something or someone else for their true fulfillment, right? Because a lot of people think of relationships as like the saving grace for everything, right? But really, life is just about experience, different experiences, and um, yeah. So that is that. But there's still a lot of fate in your love life, right? With vertex with your moon, you know, in the seventh in Libra, you will it will be a lot of these relationships that really push you towards your north node. Because you're gonna have to think, like, it could be the case, for example, let's say, where you feel like you're losing your identity in the relationship, and then where you have to make that assertive change. So it's like the best would be having a relationship where there's freedom and we can really be your own person and be with someone where, you're still living your life and, they're living their life. And there's that freedom and that ability to kind of, you know, do things on your watch, right? But yeah, in Sun Square Uranus, one of the things there is that they can get bored very easily. So with life, it can be on to the next thing, on the next one too fast sometimes, and they're very, very rebellious. So and very impulsive. And with the Aries energy, that just adds even more impulsivity, right? So you definitely got to meditate. Like, it's a chart for someone that like could benefit so much from slowing down, living a mindful life, staying in the moment. Well, Aries energy is very in the moment, but like to not allow your impulses to rule you, right? Because also, like, the Sun Square Uranus can want things to be their way, my way, or the highway so much that um, you know, it can just make them like want to like piss off like more traditional kind of conservative people, not like conservative in that way, like just like people who like are more traditional, right? Um, and they can sometimes be so rebellious that they'll go to like the wit ends just to kind of do the thing that is not wanted, even if it's not the right thing. So, but yeah, it does make someone a great leader and someone who can, yeah, I told you about the downloads, right? Um, but they have to kind of get past their ego in a sense. But then the Sun square Neptune, I think, does a great job of making you someone who feels the suffering in the world so deeply, because that's just what Neptune does. And there can it's just it can make it really, really important, the relationship with the father. um that can have like a huge, like, sometimes there can be like someone, it can create someone who like has taken on energy from that relationship, like, or from the father. So you can look at yourself and think, like, what have I taken on that's not mine? um but yeah, it's also about like limitations and trying like examining, like, what you feel your own limitations are. And I think that, like, yeah, that just kind of pushes someone, like I said, 10th house Neptune, who wants to have a dharma slash career that's in something that's linked to helping, because or that's linked to like compassion and all that, right? Because Venus in Pisces, the gift there is it's just being able to like merge, on a romantic level, like really merge and become one with the partner, right? Like, but like also to do that with the universe. Um, so it's this gateway, right? to just this higher awareness of like true love energy. But Venus in Pisces loves loves spirituality, and having Venus in the 12th house gives you a level of spiritual protection and this ability to kind of abandon yourself into the unknown. Um, and being able to like really exist in the esoteric world, and understand the zeitgeist. So I think that the self love is difficult sometimes with Venus with Saturn. It can make someone kind of very shy in their personal relationships and fear commitment. But it gets a lot easier after the Saturn return, right? So um sometimes people with this they'll choose a partner. Well, they'll either like be the one in conflict or choose a partner who tries to control them. And a lot of times it's like one of the parents was too strict, and perhaps that comes with that Chiron energy of Virgo, where there can kind of be that voice in the head of like, what am I, like that 100 or zero thinking, right? The perfectionism, which is so important to be mindful about, and like also doubts, like I was saying earlier, doubts about one's full intelligence, or thinking that something's messed up about their way of thinking because they got messaging early on that there was something wrong with their way of thinking, or like with their thought, like how they think, which like I was saying with the Mercury square Neptune, that can come from this very Capricornian school system being more of an artistic abstract thinker. And that's not always the case. It's not always the case because it is, yeah. I usually see like a little bit more, but it could definitely be something early school environment, something related to that. What was I saying? Yeah. So once those feelings of inadequacy, so you're working on yourself, um, once those become overcome, there's that, like I said, Venus and Saturn in love astrology is long lasting relationships based on very firm foundations, right? And it creates someone who's very faithful, very loyal, and they can actually like so there is like a lot of karma in your love life, as I said. But sometimes there's these like mini relationships, we'll call them that in the grand scheme of things, where you're kind of meant to like, let's say in a past life, one person screwed the other person over, is an example, right? So in this life, or like there's just some like maybe there's some energy that's meant to be like evened out, I don't want to say cord cut, but you get what I'm trying to say, like some karmic checks and balances. Um, so Eris on your ascendant also, so that's just explosive as shit. So that just is like volcanic energy, and you definitely, I would say, it can make someone like kind of like a mischief maker, and someone who like on rising who might not understand like the effect that they have on those around them. So that goes with the Aries thing I talk about, right? Where it's like the Libra moon helps you out because you get that feedback, you understand that. But you see some people with tons of Aries who are just very like extra, and they don't have the awareness to be like, oh, like you know when I walk into the room's chill, and then boom, it's like this, and people, it's a lot of energy for other people, maybe not for you. um so yeah. Yeah, but also it can be like the great disruptor, the person who needs to come in and kind of shake things up, right? And with the Uranus, when it comes to routine, so you're definitely not boring at all. That's for sure. That's it's like the word I think that comes to mind is a catalyst, who gets things going, right? But working out is super important, or having some kind of physical outlet. And also with your sixth house Chiron, um, that people with that can suffer from feelings of physical inadequacy, and maybe growing up there was some kind of like physical pain, something on that, that, yeah. And success Chiron's like success is your job, so it can make someone who is looking for self-healing, um, and it becomes like a daily thing where they're trying to heal themselves in their daily life, like on the spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, all the O's levels, and then they're able to heal it. It can lead them to healing others on a daily basis as their job, and even teach healing techniques. So interesting. Um, yeah, overall love energy. So like when we combine everything, it's like, really, really karmic, as I said before. Um, I think like for a Libra moon, Venus and Pisces are the two signs that are really, really have difficult with it's bad. It's hard for them with boundaries. Um, so Pisces is about the energetic boundaries. So sometimes that merging cannot be a good thing if it's the wrong person. So it's really about being careful. But Saturn, in this case, actually would help that because it would give a more conservative attitude. Um, so it really is with their Juno in where it is in Capricorn in the 10th house. I think your ideal mate is someone who's very, very, who can be very, very proud of, who has something going for themselves, perhaps older Capricorn, and who has honor, consistency, and I don't see much energy in your chart of someone who wants to waste time and just date. I mean, like, yeah, maybe at certain points in your life, but it's more of like a serious. And then with the Libra moon, there we have that need for very peaceful relationships where you're not taking advantage because Libra, that's about the physical boundaries, and people sometimes feel like they can get off on Libras, and the way to beat that is to not be codependent if you have that, and to not accept shit, because the second that someone needs someone else, that's when they start saying, okay, fine, you can go, like this, my person or my partner or whatever did this thing, but I'm not gonna break up because the idea of being alone is worse than anything. So it's really empowering yourself. And if you're not like that, then that's amazing, right? And then the Mars in Leo, that's just the energy of someone who wants to have fun, who wants to create, and who needs to create. Sirius conjunct Mars, Sirius and Leo, there's that, yeah, you feel nurtured by having fun. So that adds a kind of playfulness to your personality too. And I think that it, that would be an added extra as well. And so it's serious energy, but then Mars and Leo, Jupiter and Sag, there's this sort of playful element on top, right? Being able to really be yourself. Because if you're with someone where you feel, and of course the most important thing is the karmic stuff, it's where you don't feel trapped in, when you feel free, but then where you also feel like you're able to really transform a lot through the relationships. So lots of stuff there, right? Obviously, you're not going to find, it's not like someone has to check every single box I just said, but that's kind of an overall overview. Now, continuing, first house sun is just once again, self-expression is so important to you. Freedom to explore all that life has to give, and just knowing that was held back. Your free movement through life was held back in a past life. Um, so just really, yeah, leaning into that Aries, and it tends to give someone lots of confidence and just this fighting spirit, right? I think it's very much linked to leadership as well, as I said many times. um, Uranus 11th is interesting because it it would be in the 10th in classes, but I guess either way, it's speaking to, if you look at classes, it's speaking to um people like to your career just need like it goes with what I was saying earlier about there being a very kind of humanitarian but also very individualistic, unique, really wanting to help people and do something that's very individual to you, unique to you and what you really care about. In the 11th, it's just speaking to friends and the importance of friends and in groups of people, and for them to really be people who remove you from any kind of conditioning, people who are very original and that, maybe they're a bit eccentric and maybe they're a bit odd, but you're able to really be yourself around them. And perhaps it's like humanitarian groups that have that kind of purpose, just eccentric people, unusual people, right? So people that are liberated and that it's just like the opposite of like a group of people where everyone's trying to like impress each other with their watches or whatever the fuck, you know. Um, so yeah, I can't say enough how much of a need for, personal creativity and authentic self-expression that the thing I always say about authentic self-expression is that it's not about um it's not about, like, for example, you're writing a poem for the sake of the poetry, right? And that also helps with the Virgo perfectionism Chiron stuff, right? Of like being very overly self-critical, most likely, because when you can just express yourself, it's like the idea of art therapy. It's like in the act of creating that poem, you understand yourself better, and it's doing it for just the pure essence of doing it, not the likes, not because what some people do is when they start, like, for example, writing freely or like drawing or something, they that inner critic comes in, and it's like some people can't even draw. So that's important, really important stuff for sure. Really, really just not, um, yeah, really, really just trying to like kind of like dial in on the voices that, and on the impacts that are there. So yeah, yep, yep. And also animals could be very healing to you. I want to add that in there. And then like also with children, it could be like Mars in the fifth house. Also, Mars in the fifth house in Leo, it can, on a romantic level, it can sometimes be very flirty. Not, I'm not gonna say that like all the time. It'll be kind of controversial, but fifth house represents like the very romantic kind of start. Like, I don't want to call it hookups, but like, like because like, it can be a hookup that leads to a relationship. But I feel like Mars fifth house can, definitely be flirtatious and um enjoy kind of the early stages of a relationship and kind of have a drive to initiate or really look for kind of that energy. So yeah, and then fifth house, fifth house also, creativity counts children, so there could be like a big drive, and if it's serious there, it could be, your child being very, very independent, Mars, and it can make one really, really feel nurtured when they when people let themselves let them go and let them just have fun, and and they're very good at encouraging other people's individual talent. They like to also feel nurtured by people encouraging that in them. So Vesta on the IC in Cancer, that is just a deep commitment to your family and home, and to you know, just being there. But I think that it also definitely makes someone who works better with people that they have an emotional connection with, maybe working with their friends. A lot of times they may have like experienced like responsibilities, like extra responsibilities when they were growing up, and that a lot of times prepares them for this role there in life. So Palace is in um, Gemini, so the third, that just makes one a very good, very good for intelligence, and just, yeah, really good communication skills. and really like you can grasp tons of different ideas and um, write very well, speak well. It's good for that. Blackman Lilith in the third. Okay, so Blackman Lilith, we're talking about kind of darker side of your personality. We all have a dark Blackman Lilith. It's not a real planet. And here's my cat. Here's Miss Esme. Esme, you gonna help me? Esme. Okay. Come on. Do the thing where you look at a planet that's important. Okay. No, Esme. Oh my God! Stop. Look, Esme. Look. Oh my God! Why aren't you helping me, Esme? I'm not petting you. You help. Nope. Last try. Why are you closing your eyes? Oh my God. No, bad girl. She's doing it on purpose. She always helps me. But I'm supposed to done anyway, so. Esme. She's done that a few times now. Like she's tired of it. Anyways, yeah. So Black Lilith, um, us at our low. Think of it like you at your lowest vibration, and um, if you let yourself fall in that way, it's no good. No bueno. So Gemini it is very linked to a fear of rejection, and I think that people with Black Lilith and Gemini sometimes they can be very like adamant on like getting their side of the story across, and it's really important to be able to trust to take in other people's opinions, and they also have to watch out for lying. Um, Sometimes they want to be accepted so much by everyone that that they may kind of, and that's another thing Libra might do is they might kind of like be very indecisive and want to please everyone and kind of shift their opinions to fit the consensus. So it's really not defining your own individuality, right? Um, and doing things, not doing things for other people's approval, just for your own. It could also, complicate issues with siblings, not all the time, but third house can be about that. But um, let's see. I think yeah, it can also just make just it can make someone kind of like overly critical, overly argumentative, right? And there is that gift of communication, like I said before, um, but it's about you know, like I said, like talking other people, um, like kind of trying to like really get them to kind of follow your way of seeing things and of thinking. And it goes back to the idea of listening, right? And if that's something that you're good at, that's amazing. Um, but it's like, for example, going into a discussion and you already have your mind made up. Like there's nothing that can be said that could make you change your mind, right? So it's all about, being open to always changing. Um, yeah, it's definitely like I said before, like taking in other people's opinions and their views and then adding that into your kind of your worldview, analyzing and kind of like letting things in. So Oh, look at you. So you have the asteroid Psyche rising. So Psyche is what it sounds like. It's very linked to understanding human psyche. And but a really cool thing I learned very randomly is that it, if it's on your ascendant, um, Venus or Moon in woman's chart, it can make you stay looking young. I know someone who has it on her Moon or Venus, I forget, and she's this gorgeous girl who's like 40 something. She looks like she's like 22. It's crazy. Like actually crazy. I'm not saying everyone with that's gonna be like that, but yeah, yeah. So there's this real, this real kind of need to understand the psyche and understand the undercurrent. Um, so there's this real Aries drive to understand the psyche, and it's really about like kind of like the ideas and beliefs you have about the soul and about the mind. Like those are things that are like very important to your overall being, right? Also, another thing about your chart is that you can be very, very healed the more you truth seek. The more awareness and truth you bring to yourself, the more that adds to your confidence in terms of your own mind, and more that it heals your perfectionism, right? I'm going to leave you with like a really, or not leave you, I'm going to tell you about like a really good metaphor I use for like perfectionism. And by the way, it's not all of your chart. It's not sprinkled. Like I have charts where it's only with your Chiron. So if it doesn't resonate, then it could just be like maybe early on, just feeling like misunderstood for your way of thinking, right? But like, it's just like, think of every day on a scale of 1 to 100. I wrote about this in my book. Um, let's say there's like in a 10-day span, let's say day one you get 60 day two, like as long as you do the best you can, but it's like in us there's such a, or I guess in the west there's such a go, I guess more in us than like Scotland, but there's such an attitude of like do. We don't understand the essence of being, right? And just existing, and there's so much deconditioning that's needed. I catch myself in it, right? um so like lately, I don't know how close you follow me on Instagram, but like I haven't been posting much at all. And part of that is just like allowing myself to be and just trusting God. So it's like there's gonna be times in your life where you're gonna have a bunch of energy. Your average day, let's say in that period, is gonna be like a 90 or 100. Or like let's say like your baseline day will be like an 80. But then there'll be other periods in your life, like for me right now, where my baseline is like 30. So I don't have that much energy. Um, and I just have to be very smart with how I use it. I need a lot of time for recovery and to kind of just like snap into my, kind of like yeah. So it's like if day one is 60, okay, or that's cool. Next day you only get 20. You still like, or maybe you need to take the day off. You still have self-compassion of yourself and you just say, you know what, that's the best I did. Because really Virgo is like how we beat ourselves up. We are become our worst enemies, like in the low energy of that. So yeah. Okay. So Okay, you're back now. You want to look? Oh, thank you. So you look at your Venus, Saturn, and you have Lilith, asteroid Lilith on that on your yeah. So you could be someone also who just like has like a lot of like witch energy, which is very interesting. Like you might be like, but like it's really like Saturn in 12th, like I said, can fear anything hidden, and feel like their boundaries are constantly threatened. But like that real serious examination of the hidden realms, and that have like a very organized attitude towards that could be really life changing. And let's see. So yeah, I guess what Esma's saying, and what Esma's saying is, yeah, asteroid Lilith is like with is it's linked to kind of like think like when I say feminist energy, I just mean like what I'm referring to is like the woman who doesn't just take shit. Um, so it can be very it kind of goes with that Aries energy, but it's also very linked to kind of witchy energy. And you have Alpharat's rising, so that's about honors and riches. It's very good for for being successful, and living an illustrious life. It's a very nice one for and you're born during the yeah, so it definitely can make someone very it's a fighting spirit. That's one thing. Very energetic, capable of like really multitasking, and but there is that potential to be stubborn, right? But overall, it is one of the it is linked to to independence, freedom, love, riches, honor, high intellect, and it is a Jupiter Venus star. Those are the really really good ones. So that will definitely help. Um, you know, with kind of the potential of being overly um, fiery, which I think the Libra moon does too. So in terms of elements and there, you don't have any planets in Earth. So and you have the other ones. So I also don't have any Earth, and I'm not counting Neptune. I'm not counting Virgo or Chiron. I'm looking for inner planets. And your water is your Venus, and then you have fire, and you have the Libra air. So lacking Earth it can be a struggle. The idea of waking up each day and feeling like a somewhat consistent version of yourself, not like so obviously there's things you can do, like for you having your Chiron in the sixth house, having a very, very, very healing daily routine. It's really important. I talked to you about the physical fitness. It's not about fitness, that's the wrong word. It's about sweating it out. It's more about the cognitive, energetic benefits for that for you. Um, and Aries is the most athletic sign, right? So um, lacking Earth, it like some people are just naturally balanced. Um, some people have to work a lot harder and they're a lot more sensitive, and they can kind of be like floating, and they can lose their balance easier than others. So that's what me and you having the lack of Earth. But this is the thing, and this is something that I've heard a lot, um, is that because your South Node is in Earth, it makes me think that perhaps that you mastered this Earth energy in a past life, and because your South Node's there, um, okay, because your South Node is in Taurus, perhaps in this lifetime. Um, so that's crazy. I just saw my iPad was backwards numbers. It just showed like the time. It showed my lucky numbers, 11, 10. But so what I was saying is that perhaps in a past lifetime, you or past lifetimes, you conquer this energy. And because of that, and like I said, like this is something that I have seen a lot. I really, really have. So people, it's happened to me enough to where I'm like, okay, this is a big chance. Like people who like for you, like maybe you have no earth, but maybe everything I said about not like feeling grounded, maybe that just didn't really work for you. Maybe you do feel that ability to be consistent. Like my experience of not having earth is like just being able I can get like I really need to focus like little things like it's just so inconsistent. That's why like I don't schedule my readings, right? That's why I do them all only when I'm feeling intuitive and um, I have a wait list. Of course, like I wish I was someone who could perform at the level performing at now, right? Really give you the full download of everything, um, just like that, and just snap into it. I just can't. Like, I mean, like I could do it, but I wouldn't like to. And if I have the choice, I'm obviously going to choose this one, even if it's more work, right? Um, so yeah. All right, so let me just check one thing real quick. So yeah, I see you got so you have the follow up. So I'm gonna start telling people this right now because it's been impossible for me. I'm gonna do some DM answering soon. But I think like starting now, I'm just gonna tell people that maybe I'll make a new email. That would be a bad idea. Hold on. Sorry. I'll explain this to you while I'm doing this. Um, so basically, what most people do is that so you have this and the follow up already, right? Um, most people they do exactly what you did, and then they add the so instead of having just the uh, instead of having just the 1 hour follow up, um, which is only about the natal, right? We're going over this. So what they do is that the um they add the current astrology. So instead of like just a 1 hour reading, only about going over like the natal stuff, we do a 3 hour. It's usually 3 hours. It depends. Um, where our first hour is that fault they already have, and then the two after that, it's me going over all of the current astrology, right? I go over everything. I don't do like what some astrologers do, and they charge a different reading for like one for progressions, one for solar return, one for this and that. Like I do them all in one. So if you want to book that, I'll give you you have to remind me a $60 reduction, a $60 code, I guess. So yeah, just let me know, and I think that would make it 290 or it's 350. So yeah, $6 off that, and yeah, and we can. It's not a long wait like this one is. And now I'm just making this now. Um, the address is So it is Jesse Innocent Astrology at gmail.com. Let's see if it works. So that's a new email just for work. Um, and yeah, now that my DMs are just too crazy, I'm just going to have people email me there. So Jesse Innocent Astrology at gmail.com. I don't know if I can send. Wait, actually, I can. Yeah, at this point, I have to switch to that. So, anyways, thank you so much. And let me just actually look at one quick thing real quick. Oh, I didn't even realize that you have this. Well, so you have a grand trine with your ascendant Jupiter and Mars, but the thing is, a lot of people with aspect patterns, they don't believe that um that grand trines or the aspect patterns work with the ascendant. But even besides that, like maybe you could argue that there's one with yeah, you could probably argue with the sun. The sun is trying, it's kind of a far trine. But yeah, that's a fire grand trine, which is obviously in fire houses. So that's just major, Mars trine Jupiter is really a great aspect. It is really, really good for just enthusiasm and just endless source of energy, very, very optimistic, and very good for achievement and just going towards your goals and creativity, and it just puts that energy into your personality. So it'll just give like a very infectious personality. Um, ooh, I forgot to say something. So I need to talk about Venus opposite Chiron. So that is really about like suffering through relationships. Um, and like it's kind of like someone who neglects their own needs until they for like kind of like the Libra energy I was talking about, neglecting your own needs to kind of put someone else up. So it's like an imbalance. It can lead to like resenting the partners, and like kind of just like yeah, just like becoming the peacemaker. Um, because so it could be like in the family or just like in relationships, like the peacemaker that brings balance, the Libra energy. So it's all about like learning to love yourself and nurture yourself and leaning in that independence. And it's a T square, so it squares, which I didn't see because it didn't show me. Um, that it also squares Jupiter, Venus square Jupiter. It's just like watch out for overindulgence, but it shoots out third house Gemini. So the resolution point is just through, it's just through really finding your voice, through finding your voice and being able to really like get those like communication skills that are maybe like lower level, compared to like the more abstract advanced, but they have a massive impact. So yeah, and it's just like the idea of the throat chakra. See, like speaking your truth. All right. Thank you so much. Let me know on that email address. And yeah, thank you. Ciao, ciao.